Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Jason Marzek, Vice President and Senior Director of the Atlantic Council's Adrian Arst Latin America Center. Welcome to everyone joining us here in person, as well as those joining us online. And I'm thrilled to be seated here on stage next to the Minister of Industry, Commerce, and SMEs of the Dominican Republic, Víctor Bisonó. Señor Ministro, bienvenido.
Muchas gracias, Jason.
Gracias. And we're going to talk today as part of our event on supply chains and economic opportunities. I also want to recognize the fact the minister is here with a fantastic delegation. He's here accompanied, of course, by Dominican Republic's ambassador to the United States, Ambassador Guzman, as well as I think there are actually 3 other former Dominican ambassadors to the United States here in the room. But the minister also comes with a delegation of nearly 20 private sector representatives, some of whom will be speaking as part of today's program. So bienvenido to all. We're going to be speaking both today in English and in Spanish. Headsets are available for those in the room for translation, as well as there's translation for those watching online. Vamos a hablar inglés y español. Hoy hay traducción disponible tanto como la audiencia en línea y en persona. Why are we focusing on economic opportunities in the Dominican Republic? Well, for one, the Dominican Republic continues to be, and I think it has become an even more important ally for the United States. And among other things, Dominican Republic is, of course, a member of the Americas Partnership for Economic Prosperity, where we hosted President Abinader as part of the welcome dinner for the APEP Leaders Summit here in November. As well, its importance going through continued strides taken to advance economic growth, as well as a more sustainable agenda. Both of these factors have been incredibly important in creating an atmosphere of stability and also economic opportunities for its private sector. The Dominican Republic, of course, is known internationally for its spectacular beaches and hospitality, which I assume many of you watching online can attest to. I certainly can attest to the great beaches and the hospitality of the Dominican Republic. But there's much more to the Dominican Republic. There's much more than beaches and wonderful hospitality. There's a diverse set of industries that span from technology and agriculture to mining and renewable energy. And while the region faces many challenges, the Dominican Republic is taking steps toward building climate adaptability measures, diversifying its energy matrix, and developing supply chain resilience. So I look forward to speaking about these opportunities more, and also even when traveling to the Dominican Republic, as I was mentioning to the minister beforehand, look forward to being in the Dominican Republic in March for the IDB annual meeting, as well as for the 6th Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas ministerial meetings, and then of course in 2025 for the Summit of the Americas, and many other opportunities between March and 2025. Minister Bisonó has been at the forefront of the Dominican Republic's business environment agenda as Minister of Industry, Commerce, and SMEs over the last three and a half years in the position. And for nearly 20 years before that, he was elected on 4 occasions as a member of the Dominican Republic's House of Representatives for the National District, where he served as president of the Economy, Planning, and Development Committee, as well as member of the Industry, Commerce, and Treasury Committee. So I'm now going to go ahead and transition to Spanish. Ministro, de nuevo, muchas gracias por acompañarnos hoy. Me gustaría hablar preguntándole sobre la importancia de la relación entre la República Dominicana y los Estados Unidos. En noviembre, como parte de esta visita del presidente, hubo una reunión bilateral entre el presidente Biden y presidente Abinader. Para usted,
Abinader, could you share some of the success stories of the relationship with the United States, and what are some of the goals that you have achieved as part of this relationship? Well, first of all, I would like to thank the Atlantic Council for welcoming us here today, as not only us, but the entire group from the private sector of the Dominican Republic that is here with us today. And the current ambassador, Ms. Guzman, we have, together with her, we have 2 former ambassadors with us today. The Dominican Republic has always been an ally to the United States, and we've always seen the U.S. as a referent. And this has been consolidated with Abinader's administration. At a social level, economic level, but also political level. Socially, we have a Dominican community living here in the United States. Their participation in different industries is truly important. And from here, every year, they send $10 billion in remittances to the Dominican Republic. Therefore, there is a big connection between both countries. And then at a political level, we share the principles of freedom and democracy that the United States represent, and we work together. And that shows in a tangible manner, for example, in terms of the fight against drug trafficking, also the trade that we have between both countries that has increased by 5% yearly. We have a trade representing $18 billion in foreign direct investment from the United States of more than $10 billion. So there is really a very healthy and prosperous, as well as positive relationship with the United States. What would you like to achieve in the future through this relationship? We would like to consolidate the industries where we can participate. Before the pandemic, the United States was facing a challenge, which was figuring their investments, especially in Asia, and they had to figure out also a new value chain. Investments of the US in Asia right now represent only 4% of added value components of what is made over there. If that is brought to the coast, close to the United States, nearshoring, we would be talking about 40%. What cannot be absorbed in the United States could go to the Dominican Republic or other countries in the region. We've developed a partnership, the Alliance for Development in Democracy, with other countries in the region. And here we also have the CHIPS Act. Two, we have free trade zones, and we have a new program that could be developed. We are ready for it. We are coming with a mission to the United States precisely because we've commissioned a study to the Technology and Innovation Institute by recommendation of the Department of State. This report will be launched tomorrow, and I think we actually passed with a very good grade in terms of attracting investment to the Dominican Republic. I believe tomorrow's panel will be very interesting. I am going to be part of the panel together with the minister, and that's why I say so. In terms of value chains, what are some of the actions that the Dominican Republic has implemented in order to strengthen these chains, looking also at the future of the Dominican Republic? As well, as you mentioned, for the last 3 years, we've been working together with the World Bank as well as the IDB and other institutions in order to help the Dominican Republic grow. We've also developed our human capital. We have identified how important it is to strengthen our laws, and as well as the importance of foreign direct investment. In terms of infrastructure, I think the location of our plants are very important, and not only in terms of the free trade zone, but also different manufacturing plants. We could guarantee the first part of a process for which we could be ready. There are other countries in the region, two other countries in the region that are ready. They would be in charge of the last stages, which would be testing the chips and packaging them. That was done before in Asia, but now it could be done in our country. We are closer. We have human capital that has been trained. We have good connectivity with the entire region. We have 12 airports with more than 150 destinations. We have 8 international ports with more than 130 destinations. We also have 5 cruising ports, and most of the maritime and airlines go through the Dominican Republic. You mentioned human capital, and that's very important, but what has the Dominican Republic done on top of that in order to reinforce their role as a destination for the value chains? What have you done in order to ensure that these investments grow in the Dominican Republic? Well, I also mentioned the report that will be launched tomorrow. It will be public tomorrow, and that will show what has been done here. Right now, we're here in the Atlantic Council looking for your support. We are looking to establish a good relationship, and we're not talking only on behalf of the government. We would also involve the private sector. They want to take part in all this, and the presence of President Abinader in each one of the international events is truly important. You mentioned about the recent summit that took place, but last year we were at the summit when the APEP was sent, the ECPA, and then also we have the Alliance for Development in Democracy. And in 2025, the Dominican Republic will actually host all the countries in the region as part of the summit of the Americas. What do you think of this summit as part of this strategy to strengthen investment in the country? It's truly important for us. When we started in 2020 with the administration of President Abinader, it was in the midst of the pandemic, and the Dominican Republic can be actually a model to see how we or learn how we overcame the pandemic, how we maintain inflation low, how we worked with the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and how they've said we can be a role model in terms of handling these very difficult situations. At this point, we have record reserves in our central bank for more than 15 billion US dollars. And the summit that will take place next year is a great opportunity for us. In what way? Well, this year we will have municipal elections on February 18th and presidential elections in May. And you will be able to see firsthand how the Dominican Republic maintains economic, social, and political stability even during election times. And I'm saying this because even the United States is right now transitioning. We have a presidential election process going on. We are committed to continuing with the same rhythm, the same strength, the same institutionality, and the same growth. Okay, let's now talk about the role of the Dominican Republic as part of the Caribbean, but at the same time as part of Central America, as it shows the CAFTA agreement, CAFTA DR. So how do you play this double role, this double positioning? How does that help the Dominican Republic in terms of strengthening investments in the country? Well, we are also signatories of the EPA. We have an agreement with the European Union. So from the Dominican Republic, we have access to more than 100 million people at a global market, in a global market through free trade agreements. So of course, we have the DR CAFTA in place. That means that some industries that could be positioned in Asia or anywhere else, as it has happened recently. For example, we had an American industry that moved to the Dominican Republic that was in Nicaragua before, and it reduced its delivery times by 3 days thanks to the logistics that we had in place towards the United States. The same thing is happening with other industries or capitals that we could receive from Asia. They are protected in the Dominican Republic thanks to that free trade agreement. It is a destination with social, political, and economic stability, and with a free trade agreement in place. Therefore, we guarantee the institutionality. The Dominican Republic exports around 50% of their products to the United States, correct? More or less half of their exports. So The commercial relationship with the United States is therefore very important. There are a lot of people here that talk about the transformation of the Dominican Republic over the last years. The Dominican Republic has become much more important as an investment destination. You mentioned the pandemic before. What was your experience in terms of COVID? How did that help the Dominican Republic as a model or an example to learn from in terms of facing future risks? Because there are there's always risks to be faced in the future. What was your experience, and how does that strengthen the capacity of the Dominican Republic? And how has that helped the Dominican Republic to become a destination for more investment in the future? And how does that help you see uncertainty in the future? Well, for decades, we've maintained stability. We never faced anything like COVID before, neither did the entire world. And it's not only COVID, it's the war between Russia and Ukraine that has a great impact in many countries, and also in the Dominican Republic. We depend on fossil fuel imports, grains, and so on and so forth. However, we can say that it's not enough with having the right tools. It's also about knowing what tool to use at what time. There has to be good management with a good team. That's why I have to mention President Abinader and his team. So, what did we do immediately? In term, I, as a Minister of Industry, Commerce, and SMEs, together with the President, we created basically working groups with all the different sectors in order to address prices and see what type of supplies we had. Because if there are no supplies, then the prices can get out of hand. And we were doing that exercise daily. We were discussing that daily and identifying all the challenges. Then we also started implementing a policy of subsidies. That was some sort of protection or shield for the most vulnerable ones and bring peace to those that needed support. It created social tranquility. There were other countries that had a very similar scheme to the Dominican Republic, such as Ecuador or Panama, but at some point they faced social turmoil, and we did not, thanks to the fact that we maintained prices with inflation below the two-digit figures. So there were different inputs such as corn, urea, grains, flour, that has a great impact on the basic basket prices in the Dominican Republic. We stabilized all those prices, and that provided a lot of tranquility. So the capital, we received more capital, and that's why our foreign direct investment is on record times, as well as our experts. You also mentioned it at the beginning. If you talk about the Dominican Republic, everyone thinks about beaches, but the Dominican Republic is much more than that. The Dominican Republic is now positioning itself as a logistics hub. We have specific laws in place that have been agreed upon with the involvement of all sectors involved. And you mentioned that the Dominican Republic is a logistical hub, but it also is a country with a lot of stability. The Dominican Republic has managed to achieve this stability in the midst of a very uncertain world. Well, there is a meeting in the Dominican Republic in March. How could the Dominican Republic support it during this meeting? Well, with the United States, with the CHIP Act, they have the opportunity to value or rather to assess each one of the countries and see which country meets all the requirements, and then they can support the companies. And obviously based on a very specific assessment. Thank you very much, Minister, for your visit to the Atlantic Council. We are truly committed to supporting the bilateral relationship between the Dominican Republic and the United States. And not only the relationship, we also want to showcase the importance of the Dominican Republic as a hub in the Caribbean for investment and value chains. We're going now to have a panel
between this conversation and the next panel, which will be moderated by my colleague Diego Area, with top business leaders from the Dominican Republic who are visiting today. But again, señor ministro, muchas gracias por estar aquí y esperamos.
Minister, thank you very much for being here with us today, and I hope to see you tomorrow and also in the Dominican Republic. Yes, I will see you in March. Thank you very much.
Quiero que aunque norte y sur sean distintos, lleven un mismo latido en el ritmo, como quien comparte el mismo apellido, porque al fin y al cabo somos latinos. Quiero que la unión que logra la fuerza rompa divisiones y abra más puertas. Quiero que entendamos que cuando todos sumamos se hace la diferencia. Diversos como hay palabras en el diccionario, todos los significados usan el mismo abecedario. Yo soy como tú eres como yo. Cada reto juntos, si estamos juntos, sabe mejor cuando ganamos. Como tú eres como yo. No cierres el puño, que somos uno cuando queremos dar la mano. Soy como tú como yo. Soy como tú como yo. Soy como tú como yo. Soy como tú. Este es el momento, ni antes ni después. No dejes para luego cuando hay tanto por hacer. Sempre há melhor caminho e o que temos percorrido serve pra crescer, serve pra aprender. Você é como eu, sou como você. Cada desafio será vencido se nos juntarmos pra você. É como eu, sou como você. Olha de pra frente, abre essa mente, vamos fazer acontecer. Soy como tú eres como yo. Cada reto juntos, si estamos juntos, sabe mejor cuando ganamos. Como tú eres como yo. No cierres el puño, que somos uno cuando queremos dar la mano. Como tú eres como yo. Cada reto juntos, si estamos juntos, sabe mejor cuando ganamos. Como tú eres como yo. No cierres el puño, que somos uno cuando queremos dar la mano. Quiero que aunque norte y sur sean distintos, lleven un mismo latido en el ritmo, como quien comparte el mismo apellido, porque al fin y al cabo somos latinos. Quiero que la unión que logra la fuerza.
Welcome again, everyone. I want to start by thanking Minister Bisonó for sharing his thoughts on the future of the relationship between the U.S. and the Dominican Republic. I also want to thank those who have decided to make a stop on your Monday afternoons and come in person to the Atlantic Council to engage with the minister and the delegation. We'll do our best to make it worthwhile. As we have heard today, these are promising times for the Dominican Republic. The DR has become a champion of democracy, stability, and resilience in a world where public opinion is focusing always in the huge crises that are happening in the region: insecurity, violence, migration. That's why we are here today, to spotlight the role and the powerful potential of the Dominican Republic as a hub for commerce and a strong and trustworthy ally for the United States of America. We often hear policymakers and global leaders asking us to and making calls, public calls, about making democracy deliver. I hope we today here cover and share some thoughts about how to make it deliver for the people from the private sector's perspective. I'm thrilled to share the stage today with a diverse group of Dominican business leaders from different industries that embody the DR's dynamic and committed private sector. First, Claudia Pellarano serves as president of the Association of Free Trade Zones of the Americas, becoming the first woman to assume the role. In her current role, Claudia, as the chairperson of the board at Las Americas Industrial Free Zone, works towards strengthening institutionalization, good governance practices, as well as promoting greater investment in technology and smart businesses. Stephen Puig, president of Banco BHD in the Dominican Republic and president of the Alliance of Development of Democracy Business Council. Prior to joining Banco BHD in 2013, he served as vice president for the private sector at the Inter-American Development Bank. Stephen has vast experience in financial services in Latin America, leading business strategies in over 26 countries. Maria Waleska Alvarez is a specialist in negotiation, digital transformation, innovation, and information and communication technologies. She currently holds the position of CEO of NAP del Caribe, a company where she has consolidated her expansion and operations as the safest, most innovative, and best interconnected technology hub in the Caribbean. Last but not least, Roberto Herrera, an energy sector executive and business leader who currently serves as managing director, country manager for the Dominican Republic, and director of the board of Inter Energy Group. Herrera serves on the board of several business and non-profit organizations in the DR, as well as in the US. He's a member of the executive committees of CONEP, AIRD, and AmCham Dominican Republic. Vamos a darle un aplauso a los invitados, por favor. So, Claudia, I would like to start with you. The DR has experienced a surge across its various sectors, including IT sector, financial services, industries, research and development, amongst many others. What sectors and products can the DR look to as it seeks to advance its current development vision? Thank you.
Okay. Well, first of all, good afternoon. It's definitely an honor to be part of this panel, so thank you for having me. The Dominican Republic comes with very clear vision and an aligned strategy from the public and private sectors, which is extremely important. We're moving from the globalization concepts and focusing our efforts in regionalizing, again, instead of controlling the part of the global. We're implementing projects and initiatives that make us the ideal location for investments brought on by the nearshoring reality that we're living in. The Dominican Republic has taken its strengths with strategic location, our stability both politically and socially, our clear and stable framework in the legal division, our public and private partnership, the aligned good practices and sustainability, which is our focus, definitely make us a perfect fit for trade with partners like the US. Our offer is a very comprehensive one, and we've approached specific sectors, knowing that to be able to provide for a company to be able to thrive, you need to work on specific needs of those sectors, including electrical and electronics, medical device, logistic hubs, software development, and IT services. So our country focused on the infrastructure, the main drivers, the free zone parks, our connectivity, both in telecommunications, which I'm sure is going to be covered in detail, but also in the logistics support and logistic hubs. Our market access, which our minister mentioned previously, and the development of talent that is needed now. Okay. The talent that is needed now and the one that will be needed by companies coming in the near future. And another part is the fact that our public institutions are developing specific areas for support of industry and free zones. For example, all the parts of customs and Infotech, which is a training institute. This has generated results, and we can see that the free zone sector continues to be the major receptor of that FDI. over 87 parks operating, with exports of over $8 million during last year, which is about 68% of the total exports of our country. We employ over 200,000 people, where more than 55% of that is us, women, which is also very important. The first main exporter nationwide is the Medical Services Division, with over $2 billion exported last year. So, as you can see, the DR is focused, clear on what we're looking for, and ready to be able to receive the investment. And we're here to get it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Claudia. We'll go back to that, but I want to move quickly to ask my next question. Stephen, again, thank you for being here. I want to talk about ADD, Alliance for Development and Democracy. For those who are unfamiliar with the framework, the ADD was created to foster democratic strengthening with an economic growth by tightening commercial, demographic, and cultural ties among Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, and Panama, and later Ecuador. Stephen, what are some concrete benefits that this initiative represents for the DR's economy and investment, and what else needs to happen to accelerate the impact of this promising coalition?
Well, thank you very much for having us here today. I think that in terms of the ad, we try to stay away from ADD, but sometimes we forget.
It's true.
In terms of ad, the main benefit that we anticipate for the future is simply the creation of higher value-added jobs in our country. That's the main objective. As Claudia just mentioned, we have over 200,000 jobs in our free trade zones, and the idea behind AD is to increase that significantly by attracting industries that can expand their operations there, such as the medical device companies that Claudia mentioned that export already over $2 billion per year to the United States primarily, and attracting new industries. The delegation that's here today is here looking at opportunities in the semiconductor industry, for example. We have others that we believe that the country is ready for as well. So basically what needs to happen, we understand several things. The promise of the AD initiative is that we will have regular, ongoing, high-level supply chain discussions with the United States. The countries that you've mentioned, including the DR, will be at the table with the United States. The first round is scheduled for March, and this is something that we need to take advantage of. We need to make sure that we have the richest information at that table, which we're collecting actually with Claudia and with others in the other countries, to make sure we have the richest dialogue at the table in terms of actionable items that can be undertaken by any of these governments to promote trade and investment in the sectors that we're focusing on. And initially, we're focusing on the health sector. So we're talking primarily about medical devices, but also pharma, and also the promotion of medical tourism in our countries. Aside from that, I think we need to get our story out. The DR has a fantastic story. We've had notable growth over the last 15, 20 years. Something I never imagined when I was a student studying economics here in DC is that we would be the 6th or 7th largest economy in the region, and we are. You know, 2/3 of an island in the Caribbean, still hard to believe. And we're leaders in a number of things. Medical devices is one of them, together with Costa Rica. Tourism is another obvious one, together with Mexico. And I think the fact that these industries have grown so much in our country demonstrate that the country is ready for more going forward.
Thank you, Stephen. You mentioned actionable recommendations, action, and we can agree more. We think, and I was having a conversation with some of the members of the delegation, and there is definitely momentum right now for the Dominican Republic. So the momentum is now. It needs to be seized with clear and again, actionable cooperation between the two countries that leads to investment and growth in the Dominican Republic. Maria Waleska, ¿cómo estás? Thank you again for joining us. I'd like to ask you, how can the DR leverage the strides it has made in its digital transformation efforts and having one of the most secure interconnected technology centers in the Caribbean to attract more private sector development? A good example of that would be the company that you are running right now, NAPS, business model and technology serving as the telecom connectivity platform to private companies and as well as government institutions. Could you please expand on your success story?
Diego, thank you very much for having us here. I will start saying that resiliency capacity, the improve of the data protection for companies and governments, and definitely business sophistication using state-of-the-art technology that we already have in place in the Dominican Republic. Dominican Republic has been a pioneer and a leader in technology and telecommunications. As we mentioned a couple of minutes before, we are not only tourists. Actually, we have very successful in the development and the implementation of critical infrastructure. And I will cite a couple of examples about the history in the Dominican Republic. We were the first cellular system in all Las Americas outside the United States territory. Also, the first fiber optic systems that it was implemented in Las Americas, the first network access point in the Central Caribbean and Central American region, and more resilient, the Dominican Republic is the first country in Central America and Caribbean and the third in Las Americas in complete what we call the hyperconvergency between submarine cables, satellite systems, and also the last mile, all integrated. And also very important, secure. When we talk about the digital economy, we need to think about the challenges that are related to the cybersecurity. And the Dominican Republic has been a pioneer and a very advanced country in the region in the last years. In 2022, the digital agenda of the Dominican Republic was awarded with the first place in the World Summit of Information Society by the International Telecommunication Unit. And thank you to the advance made in cybersecurity, according to the Global Cybersecurity Index published by the International Telecommunication Unit between 2022 and 2023, the Dominican Republic now ranks in the position number 66 in the world, advancing 26 positions in a single year. The DR moved from the position number 10 to rank number 6 in the Latin America region. Also, the National Cybersecurity Index of Estonia reported in January 2023 an advance of 30 ranks position for our country, moving from the position 58 to the 28th place, making the Dominican Republic the number 1 in Latin America in terms of preparedness to manage cyber incidents, according to the study. Also, the Dominican Republic has consolidated its first place in the Latin America region prepared by the International Telecommunication Union in the tracker of the 2023 to the efforts precisely implemented in the telecommunication sector. And finally, one of the last pioneers element was the launch of our artificial intelligence strategy, actually working very closely with the Atlantic Council, with the group that you created. So when we realized this environment and the legal and the framework that we have been able to accomplish, certainly we can help and leverage the different companies with the resiliency, access to the most sophisticated state-of-the-art technology telecommunication platforms, direct interconnections with key cloud platforms, and secure. And I will provide a couple of examples with what's happening right now in the DR. The financial sector, it's already started to consolidate in the Dominican Republic for the Caribbean their critical system, using the NAP as a prime secure location. In 2011, we completed a direct interconnection with the cloud exchange platform of Equinix, the major United States provider of data centers. In 2028, we became the first country in the region to have the Starlink gateway and be connected to the Starlink and the space satellite systems, completing the scale hyperconvergency. And in 2019, we implemented an AppGate lab in the Dominican Republic for the region. AppGate right now is the leading U.S. federal government cybersecurity provider for all the Zero Trust efforts. So as you can see, we have been able to create in the last years a very advanced and sophisticated platforms in terms of technology. And this is not only important for the critical infrastructures that represent, but also shows our ability and the capacity of the fast learning and fast adopting knowledge for our workforce that are precisely working directly in this type of developments.
Wow. I think we all agree here in this panel that these stories need to be further socialized. We need to position these in the conversations of policymakers, investors. We find ourselves often focusing too much on the negative agendas on the region, migration, again, we can go over. But we have a philosophy at the Atlantic Council and the Latin America Center. We have a positive and constructive agenda towards the region. These are the kind of conversations we want to be having. And it's not only about economic progress, it's about economic progress in a clean way, right? So Roberto, I want to bring you to the conversation. You have extensive knowledge and experience in the energy sector. In 2017, the DR passed legislation on renewable energy to increase the contribution in electricity generation to 25% by 2025. How do you see the government's effort to encourage clean and renewable energy generation? Is the DR on its way to meeting its target?
Thank you, Diego. Thank you, Atlantic Council. The good news of being in this panel is that all of them need energy. And hopefully we're working to supply them with clean, renewable power. And the DR, as it stands now, has currently 750 megawatts of operating renewable energy capacity, mainly solar, wind, and biomass. For this year, 545 megawatts are being built. That should be ready by the end of the year. And we're not going to stay there. There's close to 1,000 megawatts more that the government has facilitated the process of concessions so that private investors carry out them through PPAs or power purchase agreements that have been directly negotiated by the authorities. There's a tender that is been announced will be coming soon at some point in the next few months to add more power. The challenge is for that power to be reliable in the sense that, as everybody knows, renewable energy coming from the wind and the sun is mainly intermittent energy still. So you need to look at storage solutions. And this is something that the government is currently exploring. And certainly the private sector has been at the forefront of providing those solutions. I'm proud to work for a company that has made a commitment to completely decarbonize one of its entities and turning the Punta Cana resort destination area into the first green energy supply tourism destination in the world by 2030. It's a big challenge, especially because the technology is still not out there for us to take advantage like countries in the region can take advantage of, like Costa Rica and Panama that have a lot of hydropower, and Colombia. However, we're looking at solutions like green hydrogen, pump hydro, and also long duration batteries that would help us to accomplish that goal.
Thank you, Roberto. Let's do a second round of questions. Hopefully we'll make it time. Claudia, would like to go back to you. Could you please share some success stories that illustrate how the DR is prepared to compete in the global semiconductor and PCB value chains?
Thank you. I think it's very important to share success stories of things that are already happening so we can really give it a dimension as to the great potential that we have to do more together. At this point, there's 25 companies in the electric and electronic sectors already operating in the Dominican Republic. There are names that you probably know, like Eaton, Rockwell Automation, Jabil, Phoenix Manufacturing, etc. They export over $1.2 billion a year and have facilities of quite a few years, some of them decades, in our country. For example, Eaton has over 450,000 square feet of operations at the Pisa Park, 5,000 employees. They manufacture circuit breakers of different kinds. And one new project that definitely lifts your spirit is the fact that they just added a design building oriented towards R&D, research and development, and right next to one of our main universities. That means that they will be tapping into and providing technology transfer and knowledge to our students of university that's mostly oriented towards STEM kind of studies. Then we have Rockwell Automation. They've been at Las Americas Park for over 30 years, focused on industrial automation components, especially circuit breakers, PCB assembly, including different processes with soldering and gasketing and welding. So there is a lot going on right now in the Dominican Republic that maybe we're not sharing enough. So When you see that it's not only electric and electronic companies doing this, but also companies in medical device divisions that are manufacturing equipment that have parts that are either electric or electronics. So what Fisons are generating, what our country is generating, is an ecosystem that really boosts the whole possibility of output and definitely exponentiates the results. So we are doing a lot. If you guys go and visit, we might be able to sit down and really talk about what we can do together to continue to grow.
Gracias, Claudia. Steven, I want to go back to sustainable development. We saw that last week, congratulations, Banco BHD obtained approval for the Official Credit Institute of Spain for a credit line of up to $50 million to finance investment projects. You emphasized that there would be a particular emphasis on projects and business loans with a sustainability component. Could you please share more about it, expand on that?
Sure. Well, I think we've been focused for quite a while now. I recall over a decade in the case of our financial institution in terms of channeling funds that are thematic. And in this case, you mentioned funds that are for renewable projects. If you look at investment in our country, I was looking at the stats recently, and 25% of FDI for last year probably went to the energy sector. And a large part of that has to do with renewables. So there's certainly demand there, and we're, as a financial institution, we're certainly very keen on meeting that demand. We've channeled similar facilities in the past from financial institutions here in Washington, like the IFC and IDB. I think that, going back to a question that you asked Roberto about what conditions exist for this, we have the incentives, we have the demand, the economy's been growing, we have the natural conditions, although there are challenges in terms of storage, and financing is available, which is not something you can say for every country in our region. Banks in our country are willing to go 10, 15 years for projects with no issues. Aside from that, you touched on sustainability. And, well, actually, I should mention one thing. Roberto, who's with us here, he was a founding member of EcoRed. He was one of the persons behind that, which is a network of companies that are interested in sustainability in our country. That was founded over 10 years ago. And that's something that our institution has participated in as well. And sustainability goes beyond energy. So just to mention another aspect and another example, several of us here have been focusing on gender. So the country, President Abinader last year launched the Gender Parity Initiative, which is something that comes from the World Economic Foundation. And in the region, it's been championed by the IDB. And the AmCham, which three of us here participate in, has been the counterpart in the private sector to get companies on board in terms of the Gender Parity Initiative. We have a standard, we have a certification that's available from the government, and we just launched in November something called the Wi-Fi code. We'll be the first country outside of the UK to have a code where financial institutions voluntarily provide information on how loans perform that are taken by women so that we can learn better how to lend to women. And we've been doing it for 10 years in our particular institution, and it's true. Well, women tend to be a better financial risk than men. What we hope is that the entire financial system recognizes that more and more over time, and we'll have information that will be good for forming better public policy in the future as well. So in conclusion, I think there's a good environment for FDI that has a sustainability focus in our country, and we're ready for more.
Thank you, Stephen. We have the goal of covering the future of the economic development of the Dominican Republic in 2 minutes. Let's do our best. Maria Waleska, first with you. As president of the board of Adeduca, I would like your thoughts about what have you seen as ways in which the DR can further develop quality education, technology, and innovation to promote competitiveness within the private sector?
I will say that strong the public and private alliance. The Dominican Republic, it's among its Latin American peers, the nation that allocates more resources in education right now, and probably one of the highest in the world. And recently, through this alliance between the public and private sector, we have been focused the retraining of our workers and the next generations and the STEM preparations with a very important focus in math, coding, and English as a second language. And we'll start those projects last year in 2 dimensions. One directly to the 12th grade programs and the other one for the technical programs. So we believe that if we had the opportunity to continue in strengthening the competencies of our workforces and also focus in the certifications and the technical educations, we will definitely be part of the opportunity of the next and the future.
Gracias, Maria Valeska. I myself was a beneficiary of an English as a second language course 7 years ago, and I can attest to the transformational benefits that can bring to the workforce. So happy to be here with you again. Roberto, to close us off, your company is planning to invest in more than $1 billion in renewable energy for Consorcio Energético Punta Cana, CEPEM0, helping it become one of the first electricity companies in the world to achieve net zero emission by decarbonizing its generation. What would you say to companies that would like to contribute in the advancement of these clean energy projects, but are facing challenges in attracting the sort of investment they require to develop it?
Well, I think, and I'm going to paraphrase President Abinader, he has said, this is the time to invest in the Dominican Republic. I don't need to add anything else to that. And I just invite anyone here to come to the Dominican Republic and see the Dominican Republic as a country where our authorities are open for business with the private sector. So that's what I have to say. I think I mentioned it before. The DR remains a pioneer in having a very diversified energy matrix. We have a lot of natural gas coming from the US, and we're accompanying, in fact, we're ahead of the demand. So we are able to serve my colleagues here with their energy needs that they would have in the near future.
Well, we made it on time, almost on time. I want to thank you all for sharing your amazing success stories, and let's continue doing it together. I also want to thank our public, both in person and virtually, who joined today's conversation. Please stay tuned for more information about the future of the U.S.-Dominican Republic relations. Thank you.